Hello from outside the Colby Center for the Tarps and Humanities in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. For shows that knock your socks off and tarps for after the storm that blows your roof off, it's the Colby Center. Tonight's sponsor is Milton Sandbags. Whether the river's rising or you've discovered a booby-trapped cave in the Andes that requires a handful of sand before you grab the idol, there's no time to argue. It's got to be Milton Sandbags. The winds are really picking up here where I am, clearly outside in the path of extreme danger. Hurricane Joaquin may be the worst hurricane since Hurricane Sriracha in 1997, or even Hurricane Swedish Fish in 1953. It is poised to bring huge winds, rain, and storm surge to the East Coast this weekend, so we should right now be upgrading our storm alert readiness catastrophe level from being drunk to being drunk by a 50-foot sea monster that's been washed ashore. There is great disagreement among the various forecast models regarding the timing of sweet relief at the bottom of a watery grave this weekend. The GFS, the NAM, and the ECMWF models all say different things. The ALS model says it'll be like a giant ice bucket poured over the entire East Coast. That joke brought to you by the year 2013, when 2015 is just a little too much. The GFS, the US computer machine, says it'll hit the mid-Atlantic states and then skim the entire eastern seaboard up to Canada. The Euro model, which is run by a group of countries that see the value in funding infrastructure, healthcare, science, humanities, and public education, and has sane gun laws. The Euro model tends to be more accurate and useful to the people of Earth. The Euro model says Joaquin will make a gentle curve to the right and head out into the Atlantic, where it will stir up the 500 square mile floating plastic garbage island brought to you by Hasbro, Ziploc, Pepsi, and every other corporation in America, and will also temporarily disrupt illegal deep-sea whaling operations, so the good people at Greenpeace will get the day off to celebrate their victory over Shell Oil in the Arctic. So which is right, the American or the Euro model? As a tiebreaker, I texted the Russian model I met last week on Tinder, but it's weird, she totally hasn't written back. That joke brought to you by the year 1970. 1970 for when, with everything that's happened in the world since your parents were born, you literally just can't even. Thanks, 1970. So what's causing the discrepancy? It's a cold front that's passing over the length of the East Coast. A front is a border between two air masses and can act in a few ways. They can be a bulldozer shoving everything out of the way, which is what the Euro model says, or a front can be a trough that a storm like Joaquin can flow along. The American model says that's what will happen. What the Americans fail to account for is this ridiculous high-pressure system forming north of New York City. High-pressure systems like this never form after summer's over, and so the American scientists are, well, they're ignoring it. They're like, the thingy must be broken, the whoozy what's it. The Europeans are like, it's called a barometer, and it's not broken. It's climate change, which we kind of don't ignore over here. So I'm going with the Euro model that accounts for a high-pressure system working with the frontal boundary to gently velvet rope the hurricane away from the premises. In summary, I'm not ready to swap out my trusty old Category 1 Hurricane Sandy whiskey for this new bottle of Joaquin Daniels. To avoid controversy, though, let's track Joaquin's progress in terms we can all agree on. Last week it was a tropical depression in the East Atlantic that nobody had heard of, like Joaquin Phoenix as Travis in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. As it moved south towards the Bahamas and intensified to a tropical storm, it became more like Joaquin as Max in 1987's Space Camp. Then it became a Category 1 hurricane and made a U-turn, like Joaquin as Toby Tucker in the movie U-Turn. Then, unexpectedly, it grew to a Category 3 hurricane like Joaquin in Commodious and Gladiator. Friday should be down to Category 2, still quite strong, like Joaquin as Johnny Cash in Walk the Line. Saturday, it'll be Bruno in The Immigrant. Sunday, the day most likely to make landfall as a Category 1 or a strong tropical storm, it will be like Joaquin's role in the unnamed M. Night Shyamalan project currently in pre-production, either another Sixth Sense, which everyone still talks decades later about, or like the forgotten sloppy embarrassment of every other Shyamalan movie. Some important safety tips for riding out the storm if you do find yourself in the middle of it. Go to the grocery store and buy an entire cart of one randomly chosen item just to fuck with people. If you can make your neighbors even more on edge, you'll have an advantage. I'd go with 1,000 rice cakes or off-brand hummus. If you see down power lines, grab them immediately and tie them to lawn furniture or children to keep them from blowing away. If the lights go out, a grill or a camping stove is a good, cheap way to light and heat your house or apartment. If you enjoy recreating pre-Raphaelite paintings in diaphanous clothing while running away from dark clouds, you should block out the next 24 to 48 as prime Dante Gabriel Rossetti time. Same if you're into Henry Darger Vivian Girl cosplay. Similarly, if you enjoy riding wild horses along the beaches of Carolina's Outer Banks while the wind whips your hair in wild slow motion, like on the cover of the kind of thing I ought to be writing instead of these reports, this is your moment. So listen, I admire the amazing work done by the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. They do a great job with what little funding and support they receive. Here at Acculorber, we also do more with less. This weekend's forecast was developed in part by feeling the noses of Jenny Smith's dog Watson Spot Meriwether Lewis and Abigail Clarkson's Little Lena. Both cold and wet, which means they're both healthy, that this hurricane will probably go out to sea, and that the hurricane after this one, Hurricane Dahlgren, will certainly kill us all. That's it for now. Remember to put plywood over your windows and under your mattress for extra back support, and also to set your clocks back this weekend. Farewell.